Lantern Keeper, 10 Sleepy Tales for the Night Traveler. Close your eyes now, just for a moment, and let me tell you where we are going tonight. There is a forest at the edge of sleep, and in that forest, a single lantern is waiting on a low branch, already lit, already glowing soft and gold, as if it has been expecting you all along. You have only to follow it, and if you do, it will carry you through 10 quiet kingdoms, one gentle light at a time, deeper and deeper into the warm dark. We will wander first into an enchanted wood, where a girl in a red cloak follows the lanterns home. From there, we will drift to a cold hearth, where the ashes turn out to be fallen stars. And then to a castle sleeping 100 soft years beneath 100 climbing roses. There's a cottage, a warm gingerbread, waiting in the snow, in a hidden grove beneath a hill lit by 7 small colored lamps. In a lonely tower where a song made all of starlight slowly opens a door. And we are only halfway there. Past the tower lies a frozen garden that has forgotten the spring, a sleepy sea, so calm it holds its breath for the lost. In a hidden hall far below the water, where 12 sisters dance until dawn. And at the very end of it all, past the last forgotten song, there waits a sea of floating stars, where every story ever told lies down at last to rest. That final lantern is the one most travelers never reach, for here is the quiet truth of nights like this one. Most listeners drift off long before the last light is lit, somewhere around the 3rd or 4th kingdom, and that is a soft and lovely thing to do. But a rare few, the true night travelers, stay until the very end, and they are the only ones who ever find the hidden kingdom in the celestial sea. There is no need to try. Simply let yourself sink and follow the lanterns as far as they will carry you, and we shall see together how far into the dark you wander. These tales are inspired by the old stories you already half remember from somewhere deep in childhood. Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, Rapunzel, and the Frog Prince, most of them gathered by the Brothers Grimm and first set down beginning in the year 1812. Beauty and the Beast is older still, told in France in the year 1740, and the 12 Dancing Princesses came to the Grimm pages in the year 1815. Here they are, retold, soft and slow, the way a story sounds when you are nearly asleep. So settle deep into your blankets now, and let your shoulders grow heavy, and let your breathing slow. The first lantern is already glowing on its low branch in the wood. There is nothing left to do but follow it. Come, gentle traveler. The forest is waiting, and so am I. Story 1. Little Red Riding Hood. There was a forest once that only showed its true paths to the gentle, and you would have liked it there. The trees stood tall and patient, their leaves the color of warm honey and old gold. And when the wind moved through them, they did not rustle so much as hum, low and slow, the way someone hums to a child they love. At the edge of this forest, in a little house with a red door, there lived a girl who wore a cloak as red as the last soft light of evening. Everyone in the village simply called her by the color of that cloak, for grandmother had sewn it for her from cloth dyed the deep, warm red of autumn apples, and the girl wore it everywhere, in every season, till it became a part of how the world knew her. It was a kind cloak. It kept the wind off her shoulders and a worry off her heart, and when she pulled the hood up over her hair, she felt as though she carried a small, warm room with her wherever she went. She had been sent that day to carry a basket of bread and soft cheese to her grandmother, who lived deep among the trees on the far side of the wood. The basket was warm against her arm, and the cloth that covered it smelled of butter and rosemary and a little honey. Her mother had told her only one thing before she left, and it was this: stay where the lanterns lead you, little one, and you will never come to harm. The girl did not yet know quite what this meant, but she nodded, because she trusted the soft voice that said it. As she stepped beneath the first branches, the day was already folding itself away. The light came down sideways and amber through the leaves, catching the dust that floated between the trees like tiny, drifting stars. The air smelled of moss and cool earth and the green sweetness of growing things. Somewhere, far off, a wood dove called once, low and round, and then fell quiet, as if it too were settling in for the evening. And there, hanging from a low branch just ahead of her, was a lantern. It was small and round and made of pale frosted glass, and inside it a flame burned the soft color of warm milk. No one stood near it. No hand had lit it. Oh, there was no pole to hold it, and no chain to hang it, and yet it hung there all the same, glowing gently in the dusk, as if it had been waiting on that branch the whole long day only for her. She walked toward it, slow and curious, and as she came close, a second lantern bloomed into light a little farther on, then a third, and then a fourth, each one waking softly as the one before it grew near, the way one sleepy eye opens after another. They made a gentle path through the trees, a soft chain of glowing lights curving away into the deeper wood. You know the feeling of a path like that, the kind that seems to want you to follow it, the kind that feels safe in a way you cannot quite put into words. So she followed because her mother had told her to, and because the lanterns were so warm and so patient, and because something in her tired young heart wanted very much to go where they led. The lanterns carried her over a little wooden bridge where a stream murmured its slow night song beneath the planks. They led her past a quiet pool where the first stars were just beginning to gather on the dark water. Floating there like a second sky lay gently down to rest. They led her past a clearing where 3 deer lifted their heads from the grass. They looked at her with calm, dark eyes, blinked once, slow and unworried, and then went back to their grazing as though she were an old and trusted friend who passed this way every evening. The forest did not feel frightening at all. It felt like a great, warm room that had been arranged just for her. Every soft thing placed exactly where a tired heart would want to find it. Now there are older stories where this very forest is full of wolves and sharp teeth and danger waiting behind every tree. And a girl in a red cloak must be clever and quick and a little bit lucky to come safely through. But this was not that forest, and this was not that kind of night. For the lanterns, you see, were old and wise, and they had learned long ago to lead the kind-hearted only along the gentle ways. The dark paths still existed, deep among the brambles, but the lights never once pointed toward them. They curved softly away from every shadow, the way a good dream curves away from a bad one. When the girl passed a place where the trees grew close and black and the air turned cold, a lantern would always bloom to her other side, drawing her gaze and her feet toward the warmth instead. She never even saw the dark paths, not really. She only ever saw the next soft light, and the next, and the next, leading her on through a wood that seemed to grow kinder with every step she took. She began to notice that the forest itself seemed to rearrange its furniture for her as she walked. A fallen log lay across one path, and when she turned to find another way around it, the lanterns had already laid down a new road of light that curved gently past. A patch of thorns drew back like a curtain being parted by an unseen hand. A muddy slope smoothed itself into a flight of soft, mossy stairs, each step cushioned and easy so that her small feet never slipped or tired. It was as if the wood were quietly tidying the world ahead of her, sweeping the stones from her path and the brambles from her way, asking nothing of her at all but that she keep walking and keep trusting and keep her heart soft and open. And the more she trusted, the gentler the forest became, till walking through it felt less like a journey and more like being carried, slow and safe, in a pair of very old and very kind arms. She began to feel wonderfully calm and warm. The basket no longer felt heavy on her arm, though she had not eaten a single thing from it. The hum of the trees had grown deeper and slower, and it seemed to match the soft rhythm of her own quiet breathing. In and out, slow and even, the way breath becomes when sleep is drawing near. The lanterns glowed a little softer now, a little more golden, and the spaces between them filled with a gentle violet dusk that wrapped around her like a second cloak. You may feel a little of that same warmth now, settling over your own shoulders, the gentle weight of a day folding itself away. It's a soft hum of something kind and patient watching over your rest. There is no hurry in a forest like that. There is no hurry here either. There is only the next soft light and the slow, even breathing, and the dusk coming down warm and violet over everything. After a long and dreamy while, the girl came to a part of the forest where the lanterns gathered close together, hanging in such numbers that the trees themselves seemed to be woven out of light. And there, in the very middle of all that golden glowing, stood a small house. But it was not a house of wood, nor of stone, nor of anything she had ever seen a house made from before. It was a house built entirely out of lantern light. Its walls were woven from warm, steady beams. Its roof was a soft dome of gold, and its windows were simple squares of glowing amber that flickered like the surface of a calm fire. It did not look solid, and yet it did not look fragile either. It looked the way a feeling looks, if a feeling could become a place. It looked like the feeling of coming home. It looked more than anything like being expected. The door of light swung gently open before she even raised her hand to it, and warmth came pouring out across the mossy ground. The kind of warmth that smells of fresh bread and wood smoke and clean linen dried in the sun. Inside, an old woman sat in a rocking chair beside a small, bright hearth, and her face was the face of every grandmother who has ever stayed up late to wait for someone. They loved to come safely home through the dark. She smiled when she saw the girl in the doorway, and as she smiled, all the lanterns of the woven house brightened by just a little, as if they too were glad, as if the whole house had been holding its breath and could now let it gently go. "Come in, child," the old woman seemed to say, though she said it without any words at all, only with the slow, soft opening of her arms and a warm crinkling of her kind old eyes. And the girl went in and set down her basket of bread and cheese upon the table, and felt the whole long day melt away off her shoulders like snow sliding from a sun-warmed roof. The house wrapped around her, soft and golden and close. In that moment, she understood at last exactly what her mother had meant. Stay where the lanterns lead you, little one, and you will never come to harm. The lanterns had led her here, to warmth, to welcome, to rest. They sat together by the small, bright fire, the girl and the gentle keeper of the lantern house, and they shared the bread and the soft cheese and a little of the honey, and they did not speak very much at all, because there was simply no need. Outside the amber windows, the forest hummed its low, slow song, and the countless lanterns kept their patient watch over the dark, and every shadow stayed gently and politely away. The girl grew sleepier and sleepier in the warmth of that woven golden room. Her eyes began to feel pleasantly heavy, as though small, soft weights had been laid upon her lashes by a kind and careful hand. Her head began to nod, just a little, toward the soft, worn arm of the chair. The old woman hummed a slow tune that had no words and needed none, a tune that rose and fell as gently as breathing, as gently as the tide of a sleepy sea far away. And here is the small, soft lesson the lanterns had carried her all that long way through the wood to learn, the lesson you may carry now into your own gathering rest. The world is full of many paths, and a good many of them are dark, but you do not have to walk the dark ones. There is always a gentler way, lit one small, patient light at a time, and it asks nothing of you but that you trust it. Keep your heart kind and keep walking softly forward into the warm. The girl knew this now, deep down in her bones, the way you come to know a true thing in the slow drifting moments just before sleep finally takes you. She let her head rest fully against the soft arm of the chair. She let her eyes close all the way, and she slept there in the house of light, safe and warm and watched over, while the lanterns dimmed themselves one by one, softly and on purpose, to keep the room dark enough and gentle enough for the deepest and sweetest of dreaming. The old woman rocked slowly in her chair beside the dwindling fire, humming still, and the great forest breathed its slow, patient breath all around the little house, and everything in all the wood was exactly as it should be. There are nights like that, you know. There are nights when the whole wide world seemed to have quietly arranged itself, every light and every shadow, only to keep you safe and warm while you rest. This was one of those nights. Perhaps this is one too. But you are still here with me, are you not? Your eyes are heavy, heavier now than when we began, but you have not yet drifted all the way down into the soft dark. That is good. A tease. The way of the true night traveler, to linger a little at the warm edge of sleep, listening. A tease. And as it happens, when the lantern keeper finally let the very last light of her woven house dim low to a single gentle glow, that last small flame leaned, ever so slightly, toward a far-off hill beyond the trees. There, on that distant moonlit hill, in a great cold quiet house, another girl knelt alone by a dying fire, sweeping ashes in the dark. And that, my sleepy friend, is exactly where we wander next. Story 2. Cinderella. On the far hill the last lantern had leaned toward, there stood a tall house of gray stone where a girl lived among the ashes. She was gentle and quiet, the kind of soul who hums to herself while she works and saves the crusts of bread for the birds. And she did most of the labor of that great house, while others slept warm and untroubled in their soft, high beds. Each night, long after the candles had been pinched out and every door had been shut against the cold, she knelt before the wide cold hearth and swept the ashes into neat, soft piles. Her hands were always a little gray from it, dusted to the wrist with the fine, soft powder of old fires. And the only name anyone in that house ever bothered to use for her was the cinder name they had given her for those very ashes. Kay did not mean it kindly, but she had made it kind in her own heart. It's the way gentle people often do with the small, hard things life hands them. She decided the name simply meant she was the keeper of the warm, gray leavings of the fire, and there were worse things to be. She did not mind the quiet of those late hours so much. The deep of the night was the one part of the long day that belonged to her and to no one else. While she swept, she would lift her eyes to the tall, round window set high in the wall above the hearth, where the sky showed itself in a perfect circle of deep and endless blue. The stars hung there, soft and patient and uncountable, and she liked to imagine that each one was a small lantern lit by someone far away who was, like her, awake and alone and looking up. It made her feel less by herself in the dark, that imagining. She would pick out one star and decide it belonged to a sailor on a calm, warm sea, and another to a shepherd on a quiet hill, and another to a child who could not sleep in a house much like her own. And she would send each of them a small, silent wish for comfort. And then she would go back to her sweeping, her heart a little lighter, the soft sound of the broom keeping time with the slow turning of the sky. On one particular night, as she swept, she noticed that the ashes did not look the way they usually did. They shimmered, faintly, very faintly. The soft gray dust caught a light that was not the firelight, for the fire had long since gone out and the hearth was cold. She went still and held her breath and looked closer, leaning down toward the little drift of ash gathered at the end of her broom. And there, scattered all through the soft gray, were tiny flecks of silver, glimmering like frost, like sugar, like the smallest crumbs of fallen starlight. She had never in all her tired life seen anything so quietly and unexpectedly beautiful. She set down her broom and gathered a little of the shimmering ash into the cup of her gray palm, and lifted it slowly toward the round window high above. And as the cool light of the gathered stars touched it, The ash in her hand began to glow. It rose up from her palm, weightless as a held breath let go, drifting upward in a slow, gentle spiral, turning first to gold, and then to white, and then to the soft, deep blue of the very heart of the night. She watched it climb toward the window, hardly daring to breathe for fear of scattering it. And as she watched, she understood, all at once and without anyone telling her. These were not only ashes, these were fallen stars. They had drifted down through the chimney over many long years, slipping in through the high round window on quiet nights, settling soft and unnoticed into the cold hearth, gathering there, waiting, perhaps, for someone who would kneel low enough and look gently enough to finally see them. You may wonder how stars come to fall into a fireplace at all, and the truth is that stars fall in a great many places, and most of us simply never think to look low enough to find them. They settle into ash and dust in the forgotten corners of quiet rooms. They gather in the soft gray leavings of old fires. They wait among the very things we sweep away without a second glance. And only someone who kneels in the dark, who works gently and without complaint, who looks up at the sky with longing instead of greed, will ever notice the silver hiding in the gray. The girl scooped more of the star ash into the folds of her apron, careful and slow, and the more she gathered, the brighter it all grew. Until the whole cold, dark kitchen was washed in a tender, silver, glowing light. And the ash seemed somehow to know her. It curled around her gray wrists like a friendly cat, winding round familiar ankles. It drifted up to brush, light as a moth, against her cheek. And then, slow and certain and full of purpose, it began to gather itself together in the center of the room. It swirled and rose and folded in upon itself, building and turning and taking on a shape she could scarcely believe, even as she watched it happen. A carriage. A carriage made all of star ash and gathered light, with great wheels of slow-turning gold in a small round door that opened like a quiet sigh, glowed soft and steady in the dark kitchen, patient, waiting. And the girl understood that it was not made for grandness, though it was grand. It was made for her. It was made for her because of all the kindness she had carried quietly through those long, gray years, because of the gentleness she had shown to small and helpless things. The crusts saved for the birds, the wishes sent up to imagined strangers among the stars, because of the patience she had kept when patience was hardest, and the soft heart she had refused to let go cold, no matter how cold the house around her grew. Stars, you see, had been watching her all that while, the way the stars do, patient and unblinking. They had counted every gentle thing she had done when no one at all was looking. Every small mercy, every quiet wish, every time she had chosen warmth over bitterness in a house that gave her little reason for either. And now, at last, they had built her something out of all that gathered light, a single moonlit night of pure and gentle wonder, woven entirely from the kindness she had swept up over the years and never once thought to keep for herself. She stepped into the carriage of light, and it lifted her, gently, not roughly up into the cold sky, but into a soft, glowing dream of the warm world. She rode out through the sleeping countryside, and everywhere the carriage passed, the night itself seemed to grow a little softer and a little kinder. Flowers that had closed against the dark opened their petals to watch her go gliding by. Owls turned their round, patient heads and blinked slow silver blessings down from the branches. The carriage made no sound at all, only a faint, warm hum, like the humming of the lantern forest far away over the hills. It is the same hum, you may notice, that you can feel now in your own chest if you grow very still. The slow, warm hum of something gentle carrying you onward through the dark. The carriage carried the Cinder Girl toward a great house that was lit up bright and golden that night, full of music and warmth and the soft murmur of many happy voices. And she went in, gray no longer, glowing now from head to toe with a gentle silver light, she had earned through all her years of quiet kindness. No one in that bright house knew who she was, and yet everyone felt drawn toward her the way you are always drawn toward a warm lit window on a cold and lonely night. She danced, slow and easy and unhurried, and for a few golden hours the long gray years simply fell away from her like ashes brushed gently from a hearth. She was no longer the keeper of the cold leavings of the fire. She was simply a girl in the light, happy, at peace, and exactly where she was meant to be. But star magic is a gentle magic, and gentle things do not last forever, and they are not meant to, for that is part of what makes them so precious while they shine. As the night wore slowly toward its deepest and stillest hour, the girl felt the carriage of light calling her softly home. She did not feel sad about it, not truly. She slipped quietly away from the warmth and the music, the way kind people so often do, without any need to be seen, leaving, or thanked for having come. And here is the soft lesson the patient stars had wanted her to learn through all of it, the gentle truth you may gather up and carry into your own deepening rest. The light you give away in the quiet, the kindness that no one sees and no one praises, does not simply vanish into the dark. It gathers, settles, soft as ash, into the corners of the world. It waits, and one night, when you least expect it and need it most, it comes drifting back to carry you somewhere wonderful. She rode the carriage of light back across the sleeping land, growing drowsy now, her head resting against the soft, glowing seat that seemed to hold her like a cupped and gentle hand. The star ash slowed its turning. The great golden wheels grew dim and tender and slow, and by the time the carriage reached the tall gray house upon its hill, it had already begun to come softly apart, drifting back into fine gray ash that settled once more, weightless, over the cold, dark hearth. It settled there to wait again and to glow again on some other quiet night, for some other patient heart that might one day kneel low enough to see it. The girl lay down beside the warm, remembered place where the fire had been, and she pulled her thin shawl around her shoulders, and she slept. And she smiled in her sleep, a small, soft smile, because some quiet part of her now knew, deep down, that she would never again be quite so alone as she had once believed. The stars had seen her. The stars would always see her, every night, every time she looked up. And that, my sleepy friend, is a comfort you may fold gently into your own pillow tonight. The simple knowing that the kind things you do in the dark, the small mercies no one notices, are counted and kept, and one day quietly return to you when you need them. Nothing gentle is ever truly wasted. Nothing gentle is ever truly lost. But you are still drifting here at the soft edge with me, not yet all the way gone down into sleep, and that is just exactly right. As the cinder girl slept by her cold and waiting hearth, one small, glittering thing came loose from the very hem of her fading dream and rolled away across the dark stone floor. It was a slipper, clear as glass, catching the last of the silver starlight along its curve. It rolled out beneath the door, and down a long, pale stair, and out across the sleeping dark, and onward toward a far green country where a great castle slept beneath 100 climbing roses. And there, sleepy traveler, our next quiet story softly waits. Story 3, Sleeping Beauty. The glass slipper rolled to a gentle stop at the foot of a green hill, far from the gray stone house. And on that hill there stood a castle wrapped so thickly in roses that you could barely see its old stone walls beneath them. The roses were ancient, their stems as thick as a strong arm, their blooms a soft and endless drift of pink and white and the palest gold, all of them glowing faintly in the silver light of the slow moon. They had grown there for a very long time indeed. They had climbed every tower and curled around every window and woven themselves across every door, till the whole castle seemed less like a thing built of stone and more like a great sleeping creature, streaming quietly beneath the thick, warm blanket of flowers. The wind moved softly through the roses, and they stirred and nodded, and a sweet, drowsy scent drifted down the hill. The kind of scent that makes your eyelids feel suddenly heavy, and your thoughts grow soft and slow and round. Inside this castle, everyone was asleep, and had been asleep for very nearly 100 years. This is a story you may already half remember, the old one about the princess and the spinning wheel in the long enchanted sleep. But the way I will tell it to you tonight is the gentle way, the slow way, the way that lingers far less on the sharp prick of the spindle and far more on the deep, soft rest that came after it. For it was not truly a curse, you see, not the way the old tellers made it sound. It was, in its quiet and patient heart, simply a very long and very peaceful nap. A whole castle laid down to rest at once and kept safe and allowed to sleep as long as it needed. There are worse fates by far. The princess at the center of it all had been a curious child, the kind who climbed the stairs that no one else thought to climb and opened the doors that everyone else had long forgotten. And high in the oldest tower of the castle, behind a small gray door, she had found a little round room. In that little round room sat an old woman at a spinning wheel, turning it slowly, humming low. But this was no ordinary wheel, and it did not spin ordinary thread. It spun sleep with every soft and patient turn of the wheel. It drew a fine silver thread of drowsiness out of the very air of the room, winding it slow and even onto the spindle. And the princess, standing in the doorway watching, felt her own eyes grow heavy in the gentlest and most welcome way, the way your eyes may be growing heavy now. She came closer, drawn by the soft turning and the low humming, and she reached out one hand toward the wheel, only to touch it, only to feel the silver thread for herself. And the moment the tip of her finger met the spindle, the thread of sleep wound softly around her, warm and weightless as a wrapping blanket. She yawned, a great, slow, comfortable yawn, and she crossed to a couch of deep blue velvet near the round window, and she lay down upon it, and she fell at once into a sweet and dreamless sleep. And here is the true wonder of the tale, the part the old tellers so often rushed past. The sleet did not stay up in the tower with the princess. It drifted down the winding stairs like a soft and silver fog, slow and unhurried, spreading out into the whole of the castle. It slipped beneath the doors and curled through keyholes and flowed along the cold stone halls, gentle as breath, touching everyone and everything it passed, and laying each of them softly down to rest. It reached the king and the queen, where they sat at their great long table among the guttering candles, and they laid their crowned heads down upon their arms and slept. It reached the cook in her kitchen, with her wooden spoon half lifted from the pot, and she smiled and slept where she stood, then settled gently to the warm floor. It reached the guards at the gate, leaning on their long spears, and they slept, standing, and then slept more deeply still, their helmets tipping forward over their peaceful faces. It reached the hounds dozing by the fire, and the great cat curled upon the windowsill, and the doves nestled in the high rafters, and the patient horses standing in the warm straw of the stable. One by one, gently, without a single cry of fear or surprise, the whole great castle breathed out one long, slow breath together and went perfectly still. The candles burned down low and soft and did not gutter out. The fires banked themselves to a warm orange glow, and all was quiet. And then the strangest and the very softest thing of all began to happen. They all began to dream the same dream. Every single sleeper in that castle, from the princess in her tower to the smallest gray mouse behind the pantry wall, drifted together into one shared and gentle dream. And in that dream, they walked, all of them, through a wide, warm summer meadow where the grass was soft beneath their feet, and the light was always the deep gold of a long late afternoon that would never quite fade into evening. There was no hurry at all in that dream meadow. There was no work that needed doing. no danger drawing near, no cold, and no want, and no fear. There was only the meadow, and the warmth, and the soft gold light in one another, all of them wandering slow and content through the swaying grass. The king walked beside the cook, and the guards walked beside the hounds, and the princess walked among them all, and no one was above or below anyone else, and no one was alone. The roses grew up thick around the sleeping castle while they dreamed, but they did not grow to trap the sleepers. They grew to keep them safe. The dense, soft thorns turned gently away anyone who came up the hill with a sharp or greedy or an unkind heart, pricking just enough to send them grumbling back the way they came. But for anyone who came in gentleness, the roses would part as softly as a curtain drawn aside by a careful hand, and let them through. And so the long years passed, 100 of them, quiet as falling snow. The castle slept on. The dreamers wandered their endless, gentle meadow, never tiring, never aging, never afraid. And the slow, silver moon rose and set and rose again over the rose-covered towers, keeping its patient watch through all those 100 turning years. The way the moon keeps watch over you now through your own window as you drift toward your own rest. You might think that 100 years of sleep would be a sad thing, a whole life quietly lost, a world entirely missed. But within the dream, it was not sad at all, not even a little. For time moves differently in the deepest sleep, as perhaps you already know, where a single long night can feel like one soft, endless moment, and one soft moment can somehow hold a whole warm world inside it. The dreamers were not waiting through those years. They were resting. They were healing from something old and tired that none of them could quite remember. And the castle held them through all of it, patient and steady as the very stone it was built from, while the roses kept their soft guard at every window and door. There came at last, after all those quiet years, a traveler who climbed the green hill in the cool of an evening, and the roses, sensing the gentleness in him, parted softly to let him pass. Hey, for his heart was kind, and his step was slow and quiet upon the path. He walked in wonder through the sleeping halls, past the dreaming cook with her half-lifted spoon, past the dreaming guards leaning on their spears, past the doves asleep in the high dim rafters, and the great cat curled upon its sill. He did not rush, and he did not call out to wake anyone, and he did not reach to take a single thing. He only walked, slowly and softly, with a kind of quiet reverence, the way you might walk through a moonlit room where someone you love very much lies sleeping, and you would not wake them for the world. He found the princess at last in her high tower, asleep upon her couch of deep blue velvet beside the round window, with the silver spinning wheel gone still and quiet beside her. And he did not break the long spell with any grand or sudden or startling act, for that is not the way of this gentle story. He only sat himself down nearby, for he was tired too from his long, slow climb, and the warm, drowsy air of the little tower room wrapped softly around him. His own eyes grew heavy, the way yours are growing heavy now, and he laid his head down to rest just for a moment. And in resting, he slipped quietly into the shared dream, along with all the rest. And there, in the warm gold meadow, he came upon the princess, walking through the soft grass, and she turned and saw him, and she smiled. And they walked on together through the endless, gentle afternoon. And that, as it turned out, was all the waking that was ever truly needed. For here is the soft lesson at the heart of this drowsy tale, the gentle truth you may gather close as you settle deeper into your own warm bed. Rest is not a thing to be feared, and the deepest sleep is not an ending, but a kind of gentle keeping. Sometimes the very wisest thing a tired heart can do is to lie down in the warm quiet of a long dream and let the roses grow up soft and safe around it, trusting that when the time is truly right, it will rise again, healed and whole and ready. There is no rush at all. There never was. There is only the meadow and the warmth and the slow turning of the patient moon overhead. The castle did wake, at last, slowly, the way you are not waking now, but only drifting softly deeper. The doves shook out their feathers in the rafters. The cook finished a slow stir of her pot, as though no time at all had passed. The hounds stretched and yawned by the rekindled fire, and not one of them felt as though they had lost 100 years of living. They felt instead as though they had simply had the very best and longest and most perfectly peaceful rest of all their lives, which is precisely and exactly what it was. They went on then with their gentle, ordinary days, well slept and unhurried and kind, and the roses kept growing soft and thick around their old stone walls, and the whole castle carried a deep, quiet peace within it ever after, the peace of a place that has learned how to truly rest. But you are still here, are you not? Half dreaming already, drifting at the warm, grassy edge of your own gold meadow? And that is just the way of it tonight. As the Rose Castle settled back into its quiet, contented life, far below, at the dark edge of the forest, something small and pale caught the silver moonlight upon the ground. A trail of breadcrumbs scattered through the shadowed trees, glimmering faintly like a tiny path of fallen stars laid down to lead the way. And two small children, hand in hand, were following it softly home. So let us follow them to now, gently, into the next quiet tale. Story 4, Hansel and Gretel. The trail of breadcrumbs led down off the rose hill and into a pine wood deep with quiet snow. And through that would walk the small children, a brother and a sister, holding tight to one another's hands so as not to lose each other in the dark. They had wandered far from home that day, much farther than they had meant to, the way you sometimes wander far down into sleep without ever noticing the soft path you took to get there. The boy had been dropping the crumbs behind them to mark the way back home, but the soft snow had begun to fall, slow and thick and fat-flaked, and it had quietly covered most of the crumbs, and the wood had grown very deep and very still around them. The sister, whose name was a gentle one, Kay, was not nearly as frightened as you might expect a child lost in a snowy wood at night to be. Quarter Pine Wood, despite all its dark, had a hush about it that felt somehow kind, a great, soft quiet that wrapped around the two of them like a thick wool blanket. The snow drifted down through the heavy branches in slow, fat flakes, and where each flake came to rest, it seemed to glow a faint and tender blue in the light of the hidden moon. The tall pines stood close together all around, like patient old guardians keeping watch, and somewhere far off through the trees an owl called once, low and soft and round, as if to say, "This way, little ones, this way, do not be afraid." So they walked on, and soon the trail of crumbs gave way to something even better than crumbs, a song. It came drifting toward them through the snowy trees, a gentle melody with no words to it at all. The kind of tune a grandmother might hum to herself while kneading bread late at night in a warm kitchen. It was warm and round and just a little bit silly, that song, and it made both children smile despite the cold and the dark and the long-lost day. So they followed it, hand in hand, because surely a song as warm as that could only ever lead somewhere good and kind. As they walked toward the song, the close pines began slowly to thin, and a soft, golden glow appeared ahead through the trees, flickering and warm, and on the cold air there came the smell of cinnamon and fresh baked bread, and something sweet baking slow and patient in an oven. And there, set in a small, round clearing all dusted over with soft blue snow, stood a little cottage. But it was not a cottage made of wood or stone or plain ordinary things. It was a cottage made all of gingerbread. Its walls were warm brown spiced cake, and its roof was neatly tiled with round sugar cookies, and its windows were panes of clear spun sugar, glowing soft amber from the firelight within. White icing hung from the eaves, like soft snow that would never melt or fall. Bright gumdrops studded the doorframe in cheerful rows of red and green and gold. And the whole little house seemed to breathe out warmth and welcome into the snowy clearing. And the gentle, wordless song came drifting from somewhere deep inside it. Now you have very likely heard a darker telling of this old tale. The one where the sweet little house is a wicked trap and something cruel and hungry waits within it for lost and tender children. But that is not the house we have found here tonight, sleepy traveler, and that is not the kind of night this is at all. For this gingerbread cottage was a far kinder place than the old frightening stories ever cared to remember. Tet, very long ago, by someone who understood a simple and important thing. That someone understood that lost and frightened children, most of all in the whole world, need to be fed and warmed and gently told that they are safe now and need not be afraid any longer. And so the little house, over its long, quiet years standing in the snow, had learned to do exactly and only that. For anyone at all who came stumbling, cold and weary out of the dark wood and found their way to its glowing door, it had become a house whose only purpose was comfort. The door of sugar and gingerbread swung gently open before the children could even raise a hand to knock upon it. And warm, golden light came spilling out across the blue snow to meet them. An old woman stood in the doorway, round and soft and dusted lightly with flour, with eyes that crinkled kindly at the corners and a smudge of flour upon one cheek. She did not look hungry, and she did not look cruel. She looked, more than anything in the world, like the very idea of comfort given a warm and human shape. "Come in out of the cold, my little ones," she seemed to say to them, though she scarcely needed any words at all. And the two children went in gladly, because every single part of the warm, glowing house told their tired hearts that going in was the right and safe thing to do. And inside, the cottage was even warmer and cozier than it had looked from without. A small fire crackled low and orange in a round stone hearth, casting soft, dancing shadows on the gingerbread walls. A long, well-worn wooden table held bowls of steaming soup and thick slices of soft, warm bread and cups of something hot and gently spiced. And here, you see, was the true and gentle magic of that little cottage, the very thing it had been built so long ago to do. It baked, always and only, whatever a hungry and frightened heart most needed. Not the richest food, nor the grandest feast, nor the fanciest sweets a child might dream of, but the exact simple, warm thing that would make a tired and worried little soul feel truly held and cared for. For the sister, who had been so brave for so long that day, holding her own fear down deep so as not to frighten her brother. The cottage baked a soft, warm honey cake that tasted, somehow, like being gently told that she could rest now, that she had been brave enough, that someone else would keep watch for a while. And for the brother who had carried all the heavy worry of finding the way home through the dark, it baked warm, spiced apples that tasted like being told that it was not his job to be strong tonight. They ate slowly, the two of them, sitting close together by the warm orange fire. Hey, and with every soft bite, the cold and the fear and the long dark wandering melted a little further out of them. The old woman hummed her gentle, wordless song and tended quietly to the warm oven and asked them nothing at all that they did not wish to tell her. She simply let them be warm. She simply let them be safe. Okay, and slowly, the two children began to feel as though they had always belonged in that cozy, glowing room. The children grew warmer and heavier and more wonderfully content with every passing minute. The sister's eyes began to droop and close. The brother yawned a wide and honest yawn that he could not have held back if he tried. In the gentle cottage, sensing this the way it sensed everything about the hearts within it, dimmed its warm lights down to a soft and drowsy glow, and brought out two small beds piled high with thick quilts that smelled faintly and wonderfully of cinnamon and clean, warm wool. There was no danger here, you understand? No cruel oven waiting, no wicked turn hidden in the warmth, no terrible price to be paid for the comfort. There was only the soft and simple truth that this little house existed to feed the lost and to forgive the frightened, asking nothing whatsoever in return, but that the children let themselves be cared for, that they set down their burdens and accept the kindness freely given, and that, it turns out, can be the hardest gift of all to accept and the most healing. For here is the gentle lesson that the warm gingerbread cottage holds within its sugar walls, the soft truth you may take into your own gathering rest. When you are lost and cold and far from home, the bravest thing you can do is not to keep on running and searching through the dark. The bravest thing is to let yourself be found and warmed and fed, to accept the kindness of a safe place when at last you stumble upon one, to set down the heavy worry you have carried so long and let someone else hum the song for a while. The two children learned this deep in their small, tired bones as they sank down into the soft, warm beds, pulling the cinnamon quilts up to their chins. And so, perhaps, you may learn it too. Here, now, as you sink down deeper into your own bed and let the day's small worries slip from your shoulders, one by one. There is a time for searching, and there is a time for resting. And the night, the deep, soft, snowy night, is always a time for resting. The children slept the deep and dreamless sleep of little ones who feel completely and entirely safe. And the kind old woman rocked slowly in her chair by the fire and kept the embers banked and warm. And the snow fell soft and blue and endless outside the spun sugar windows. In the morning, the little house would gently show them the way home again. The breadcrumbs glowing once more beneath the melting snow, the path made clear and easy and bright before their feet. But that was a matter for the morning, and the morning was still far away. For now, there was only the warmth and the deep, safe rest and the slow, gentle song winding softly down toward quiet. But you, my dear night traveler, are still drifting just at the surface of sleep. Are you not? Not yet all the way under into the warm dark? And so I will tell you one last soft thing about that little cottage before we wander on. Upon its inner wall there hung a mirror, old and silver-edged and gently clouded with age. And in the soft firelight, the surface of that old mirror did not show the cozy room at all. It showed, instead, a faraway place, a green and mossy garden deep beneath a hill, where 7 small lanterns burned in a quiet, glowing row. And in that hidden underground garden, soft and green and waiting, our next gentle story was only just beginning to glow. So toward that mirror's faraway light we drift now, slow and dreaming, into the next quiet tale. Story 5, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. The old mirror in the gingerbread cottage had shown a garden deep beneath a hill. And that green glowing place is where we wander now, down soft and mossy steps into the gentle dark. For there was a girl once, gentle as new fallen snow, and just as quiet, who had walked a very long way through the forest with a heavy and frightened heart, fleeing something cold that had been left behind her. She did not know where she was going. She knew only that she needed badly to find somewhere safe to rest. She had come from a grand house far away, where a jealous heart had grown so cold and so hard that it could not bear the sight of another's gentleness, and had wished the gentle girl gone from the world entirely. And so the girl had fled out the door and into the wide, dark wood, with nothing but the clothes she wore and a heart that ached with the cruelty of being so unwanted. The forest, kind as it sometimes is to the gentle, took pity on her and led her at last to a small, low door set into the green side of a hill. The door was low and round and made of old, gray, weathered wood, with a handle of polished stone worn perfectly smooth by the touch of many small hands over many long years. She knocked upon it, softly, twice, and when no answer came, she pushed it gently open and stepped inside. And there she found the most wonderful little home that she had ever in her life seen. It was a snug cottage built right into the living hill itself, with walls of packed, warm earth and curling tree roots that arched overhead like the beams of a low ceiling. And hanging from that low root-woven ceiling were 7 small lanterns, each one glowing a different, soft, and gentle color. There was a rose-colored one, and a golden one, and a green one, the shade of new spring leaves, and a blue one like deep, calm water, and an amber one, warm as honey, and a pale, pearl-colored one, and last of all, a soft, deep violet one, the color of the very last of the sky before true night comes down. Together, those 7 small lights filled the whole earthen room with a warm and living glow. The lanterns lit a cozy little room with 7 small chairs gathered around a low wooden table, and 7 small bowls set neatly upon it, and 7 small beds lined up in a tidy row against a far earthen wall, Everything in the cottage was little, made for keepers far smaller than herself, and everything was kept with the most careful and loving attention. A fire glowed warm in a round stone hearth. Bundles of fragrant herbs hung drying from the root beams overhead. The whole place smelled wonderfully of warm earth and green moss and fresh baked bread. It wrapped itself around her tired and frightened heart like a warm woolen blanket, that little room. And the girl was so terribly weary from her long walk through the dark that she did not even stop to wonder whose home it was. She simply lay herself down across 3 of the small, soft beds, for she was too big for only one, and she fell at once into a deep and dreamless and much-needed sleep. And while she slept, the 7 small lanterns glowed softly on, keeping watch over her in the gentle dark. When at last she woke, it was to find 7 small faces gathered round and looking down at her, not unkindly at all, only with a great and gentle curiosity. They were the keepers of the Lantern Grove, the small, gentle folk who lived there beneath the hill and tended the 7 lights with such loving care. Each one of them, you see, kept and tended a single lantern, and each lantern held something precious and important within its soft glass. They were not merely lamps, those 7 lights. There was something far more. One small lantern held patience, glowing steady and slow. One held courage, burning warm and bright. One held laughter, flickering with a merry little dance. One held rest, soft and dim and soothing. One held memory, glowing the warm gold of old happy days. One held hope, the palest and most delicate light of all, and yet, somehow, the most enduring. And the 7th, the soft, deep, violet one, held something the 7 keepers would not yet quite name aloud, something that had been waiting, unlit and patient, for a very long time. They were not frightened of the girl who had wandered into their home. And after her first startled waking, she found that she was not frightened of them either. And that, you see, was the gentle beginning of something good and lasting. They offered her a small bowl of warm soup and a small cup of fragrant tea. And she in turn shared with them the little heel of bread she had carried in her pocket all that long way, and they all sat down together in the soft lantern light and listened to one another speak. She told them, haltingly at first, and then more freely, of the cold things she had fled, of the jealous heart that had wished her gone, of the long, frightened walk through the dark wood. And the 7 small keepers nodded slowly and gravely as she spoke, for they had known of cold hearts before in their long, quiet lives, and they understood a deep and simple truth. They understood that the only true cure for the chill of being unwanted is the steady, patient warmth of being truly and wholly welcomed somewhere new. And so, without any fuss or grand ceremony, they simply made a place for her among them. By day, while the 7 keepers went out into the deep tunnels to tend the ancient roots of the hill, The girl kept the little cottage warm and tidy, and she trimmed the 7 lanterns and kept their soft flames bright and even. She learned the small, wordless songs the keepers sang to each light to keep it burning true. She learned that the rose-colored lantern dimmed a little whenever no one had been kind that day, and brightened whenever someone had. She learned that the 7 lanterns were not only lamps to light the dark, but a kind of living and breathing record of all the gentle things that were done beneath that quiet hill. With soft and patient work, the keeping of those lights, and it suited her gentle nature wonderfully, and slowly, day by day, and light by light, her frightened heart began to grow warm again, and the cold that had been left behind her began at last to thaw and melt away entirely. Now, upon the cottage wall there hung a mirror, the very same silver-edged mirror that the gingerbread house had shown in its glass. In this mirror, you should know, had a most particular gift. It only ever told the truth. But here is the true wonder of it, the thing that made it unlike any other mirror in any other tale. The truth that it told was never once cruel. For the mirror had learned, over its own long years hanging in that loving home, the deepest truth there is to know about any heart at all. It had learned that the very deepest truth about any heart is its capacity for kindness. And so, when the gentle girl, frightened still of what she might see reflected back at her, finally gathered her courage and looked into the old mirror, it showed her not her flaws and not her fears. It showed her, instead, her own gentleness and her own quiet courage in carrying on through the dark, in the warm, steady light that she carried within her without ever knowing it was there. In looking, she understood at last that she was worthy of the safe place she had found. There are mirrors in older and darker tales that lie, or that whisper jealous and poisonous things, or that drive the hearts that gaze into them toward cruelty and envy. But this gentle mirror was the very opposite of all those. It had decided, long and long ago, to tell only ever the kindest true thing it could possibly find within anyone who looked into its glass. And is that not, after all, the very truest truth there is to tell? For every heart holds within it both darkness and light, and the mirror simply chose, always, to name the light, and in the naming, to help it grow. The girl looked into that kind mirror each evening before she slept, and each evening she came to believe a little more deeply in her own quiet goodness. The cold thing that had chased her from her old home never once found the little door set in the side of the hill, for the 7 lanterns turned softly away anything jealous or unkind that came near, the way the roses had turned away the greedy from the sleeping castle, the way the lights of the deep wood had curved gently away from every shadow. She was safe there, truly and entirely safe, among the 7 small keepers and their 7 glowing lights. And in time she came to understand the soft lesson that the hidden place held for her, which is this gentle thing. A home is not the grand walls that stand around you. Home is the place where you are seen truly, just as you are, and welcomed wholly with all your fears and all your flaws, and reminded, gently and often, of your own quiet inner light. And in the fullness of time, the 7th lantern, the soft, deep, violet one, the one whose gift the keepers would not name aloud, began to glow brighter than it ever had before. And the 7 small keepers smiled at one another, 'cause now, at last, they knew what it had always held, what it had been patiently waiting all those long years to finally hold. It held belonging. It had been waiting all that while for exactly the right gentle heart to come and fill it, and now that heart had come. And so the violet lantern glowed full and deep and steady, lighting the whole earthen grove a soft and lovely shade of purple, the color of the last of the sky before true night, the color of the quiet moment just before sleep finally takes you all the way down. The gentle girl lived long and happily among them after that, and she slept each peaceful night bathed in the soft violet glow of belonging. watched over by 7 small and loyal friends and 7 warm and steady lights. And you may carry that same soft glow into your own deepening rest tonight. The simple and certain knowing that somewhere in this wide world there is a place, even if you have not yet stumbled upon its low and welcoming door, where you will one day be seen truly and welcomed wholly. The kind mirror would tell you so, were you to look into it. Okay, the kind mirror, you will remember, only ever tells the truth. But you are still here, are you not? Drifting in the soft violet light, not yet quite all the way under into sleep. And so I will follow one last gentle thread out of that hidden grove for you. High above the green hill, far across a wide moonlit valley, in a tall and lonely tower, a single high window stood open to the cool night air. And out of that open window there spilled something long and golden and shining, catching the silver moonlight as it tumbled down and down toward the swaying grass far below. A braid of hair, longer than any you have ever seen. Okay, and there, sleepy traveler, our next slow story softly begins. Story 6. Rapunzel. Across the wide moonlit valley from the hidden grove, there stood a tower, round and tall and quite alone, rising from a broad meadow of grass that swayed in the night wind like a slow and gentle sea. The tower had no door at all set in its base, which is a strange thing for a tower to lack. Or rather, a strange thing for a tower not to have. Its only opening was a single high window near the very top, and from that window, on this particular soft night, there spilled a long rope of golden hair. The hair shone in the silver moonlight as it tumbled down the gray stone wall toward the swaying grass below, glowing faintly with a light that seemed almost to come from within it. And the hair belonged to a girl who had lived in that lonely tower for as long as she could remember, okay? And a good while longer than that. Besides, she did not know how she had first come to be there. She knew only that the tower was warm and safe, and that food appeared when she was hungry, and a soft bed waited when she was tired. She was not unhappy, exactly, for she had never in all her life known anything other than the round walls of her tower and the wide view from her single high window. But on the quietest of nights, she would sit upon the sill of that window and look out across the swaying silver meadow toward the dark line of forest far beyond, and she would feel a gentle tugging deep within her heart, a soft and wordless wondering about the wide and waiting world that she could see so clearly and yet never once touch. Her hair had grown all through the long years of her life, never cut, never trimmed, until it was far longer than the tower itself was tall. She kept it wound up in a great, soft, heavy braid, and at night she would unwind it and let it fall down out the window, partly because it was so heavy upon her head, and letting it down gave her tired neck a rest, and partly for a reason that she did not herself fully understand. For her hair, you see, was not ordinary hair at all. It held starlight. All those countless quiet nights of sitting upon the windowsill beneath the open and uncountable stars had soaked their light down deep into every single golden strand, until the whole great braid shimmered and glowed faintly even in the darkest part of the night, like a long river of captured and gently held moonbeams. When she let it down out the window, the starlight in it would catch and ripple, and anyone passing far below in the meadow might have thought a thin waterfall of soft light was spilling down the old gray tower. On the particular night that our story finds her, she let her long hair down out the window, as she always did, and then she began, very softly, to sing. It was an old song, one she could not remember ever having learned, a slow and wordless melody that rose and fell as gently and as naturally as quiet breathing. She sang it most nights, alone, out into the dark, simply to keep herself company in the great silence of her tower. But on this night, as the starlight caught in her hair trembled and shimmered along with the rising and falling of the tune, something stirred far below in the swaying grass. A traveler was passing through the wide meadow in the dark, making his slow way toward the distant forest. And at the first soft notes of her song, he stopped entirely still, for he had never in all his wandering heard anything half so beautiful, nor half so gently sad. He followed the sound of it through the swaying grass to the very foot of the tall tower, and he tipped back his head and looked up, and he saw the long shining braid of golden hair spilling down from the high window, glowing soft and steady in the moonlight. He did not climb it, for that would have been a sharp and sudden and startling sort of thing to do. And this, you will remember, is not a sharp or sudden sort of story. Instead, he simply sat himself down in the cool, soft grass at the base of the tower, and he listened with his whole quiet heart, till her old, wordless song at last came to its slow and gentle end. And then, when the final soft note had faded into the night, he sang it back to her. The very same melody, low and warm and a little uncertain, his voice rising up the gray stone toward her open window. The girl in the tower went very, very still. In all the long years of her solitary life, no one had ever once answered her song. She had sung it into the empty dark 1,000 times and 1,000 times more, and the dark had only ever listened in silence. But now, tonight, the dark had sung back. She leaned out from her window and looked down through the moonlight, and she saw the traveler sitting there in the silver swaying grass, his face turned up toward her, open and kind and entirely unhurried. And she felt the gentle tugging in her heart at the soft, wordless wondering she had carried all her life. Suddenly grow and bloom into something warm and bright and wonderfully certain. She was not so alone as she had always believed herself to be. The wide world below had heard her at last. The wide world below had stopped and listened and sung her own song back up to her. And in that moment, something very old and very heavy began, ever so slowly, to lift from her shoulders. Now, in the older tellings of this tale, there is a witch who keeps the tower locked and the girl shut away within it, and a great deal of trouble besides, and a hard and frightening sort of escape. But tonight I will tell you only the soft version, the gentle version. It's the one in which the magic of the tower was never truly a cruel prison at all, but only a long, deep sleep that the girl had not yet quite woken from. For the song that she sang, that old, wordless melody she could not remember learning, was a key. It had always, always been a key, and she had been singing that key softly to herself, night after night after night, all the years of her life, without ever once knowing that it had the power to open any door at all, even a door that did not yet exist. The traveler, sitting in the grass below, seemed somehow to understand this, and he called gently up the wall to her in his soft, warm voice. "Your song opens things," he told her. "It's opened my own heart from clear across the meadow. Perhaps, if you sang it truly, it might even open a way down for you." And the girl, who had quite simply never once thought to try such a thing, drew in a slow and trembling breath. She gathered up all the soft starlight held in her long golden hair, and she gathered up all the longing held in her quiet heart, and she sang the old song again. But this time she did not sing it out into the empty night air. This time she sang it down, warm and full and entirely unafraid, into the very gray stones of the tower itself, into the cold, patient walls that had held her all her life. And the tower listened. The old gray stones, which had stood so very long and so very silent, began slowly to soften and to glow from within. The soft starlight from her hair flowed down out of the braid and into the waiting walls, tracing along the stone a shape that had never been there before, the shape of a door, a low door and a round one, gentle and welcoming, taking form right there at the very base of the tower in the swaying silver grass. The song had made it. The song had been quietly making it, slowly, one patient note at a time, all her life. And now, at last, the door was finished, and it swung gently and silently open, and the warm, soft night air came flooding in through it, carrying the green, sweet smell of the meadow and the wide, free world beyond. The girl climbed down toward it, not by her long hair, as you might expect, by a soft, winding stair that her own song had woven into being inside the hollow of the tower, round and gently down, as soothing and as easy as a lullaby, until at last her bare feet touched the cool, soft grass of the meadow for the very first time. The traveler stood waiting for her there, and she came and stood before him. And all at once, the entire wide world that she had only ever seen from high above was suddenly all around her, vast and dark and breathing and alive. There were crickets singing in the grass, and the cool wind moving through it, and the green growing smell of the earth, and the great open bowl of the star-filled sky overhead with no window frame around it at all. And she wept a little, standing there, not from any sadness, but from the sheer, soft, overwhelming wonder of it all. For here is the gentle lesson of the tower and the long golden hair. The soft truth you may gather up and hold close as you settle deeper, now into your own warm and waiting rest. Sometimes the thing that keeps us is not a lock at all, but only a not yet knowing. A song we have been quietly singing all along without ever realizing that it holds the power to set us free. We are so very often far closer to our own freedom than we ever dare to believe. The key is most often something we already hold within us, some quiet gift we have carried for so long that we have entirely stopped noticing it is even there. And when at last we use it, fully and truly and without fear, the very walls we always thought were solid, cold stone turn out to have been only waiting, occasionally, all along, for us to ask them gently to open, and then they do. The girl and the traveler walked out together across the wide moonlit meadow, the long golden hair trailing softly behind her through the grass. It shed soft drops of starlight onto the swaying grass as she walked, leaving a faint, glowing wake behind the two of them like a path of fallen stars. She was tired now, the good and honest tired of a heart that has finally done at last the one brave thing it was always made to do. And so they found a soft, deep hollow in the meadow grass and laid themselves down beneath the wide open sky. And she let her starlit hair spread out around them like a great glowing blanket. And they slept there together beneath the very stars whose gentle light she had carried within her hair all those long, lonely years. But you are still drifting just at the soft surface of it all, are you not? Not yet all the way down into the deep, grassy hollow of sleep. So let me carry you onward, gently, the way the wide meadow carried the girl from her tower. When the soft morning came at last to the sleepers in the grass, the traveler drew from his pocket an old map, worn soft and thin at all its folded creases. And upon that old map there was marked a winding path through the deep forest, leading to a castle where, the faded ink promised, a gentle beast tended a garden that had never once known the coming of spring. And the girl, curious now at last about the whole wide waiting world, wished very much to go and see it. So toward that castle we drift now, slow and dreaming, into the next quiet tale. Story 7, Beauty and the Beast. The old map led on through the deep forest to a castle of pale gray stone. And all around that quiet castle lay a garden, and the garden was always, always winter. Soft snow rested upon every hedge and every bough, and the fountains had frozen mid-leap into shapes of clear and gleaming ice, caught forever in the act of rising. And yet, for all its endless winter, it was not a cold or a cruel place to come upon. The snow glowed soft and tender blue in the perpetual, gentle twilight that hung over it, and floating among the frozen branches of the garden were dozens upon dozens of small candle flames, drifting slow and weightless through the cold air like a great gathering of patient fireflies, casting a warm and golden light across all that gentle, drifted white. They did not melt the snow, those floating flames, and the snow did not put them out. They simply drifted there together, warm, light, and cold white, in a kind of soft and ancient balance, lighting the frozen garden with a glow that was somehow both wintry and warm at once. In the castle, at the very heart of that frozen garden, there lived a beast. He was large and shaggy, and his voice when he spoke was low and deep like distant rolling thunder, heard from very far away. But his eyes, if ever you looked closely and kindly at them, were soft and sad and gentle. Long ago, the old stories say, he had been something else entirely, and a spell had wrapped him in this great shaggy shape. But tonight, let us not dwell at all on what he once was. Let us only know him as he was on this quiet night, a lonely keeper of a frozen garden, tending his roses faithfully through the endless, unbroken winter, waiting year upon year for something he could not quite name and had almost forgotten he was waiting for. For there was one rose, you see, in all that great frozen garden that was not made of ice and was not dusted with snow. It grew alone in a case of clear glass at the very center of the castle, a single deep red rose, soft and living and warm, glowing faintly from somewhere within its petals. The beast tended that one living rose above all else in his keeping, above the floating flames and the frozen fountains and the snow-laden hedges, for he understood in some deep and wordless way that this rose was the true beating heart of the whole garden, and perhaps, too, the heart of himself. It bloomed, that rose, only when someone in the garden was truly seen, and no one at all had come to that lonely place to see or to be seen in a very, very long time. And so the rose held its bloom tightly closed, patient and waiting, neither dying nor opening. The beast was not unkind in his long loneliness, as lonely creatures sometimes become. He fed the small birds that wintered in his frozen trees, scattering crumbs for them across the snow each morning. He kept the dozens of floating candle flames trimmed and bright and gently burning. He spoke softly and often to his roses, even the frozen ones, telling them long, slow stories of the spring he could only half remember. But he had grown very quiet over the long years, the way a soul grows quiet when there is simply no one near to listen. And his great, shaggy heart had begun, slowly and without his quite noticing it happen, to frost over a little at its edges, the way the garden itself had frosted over, soft and white and silent. He did not feel it happening. That is the way of such things. The frost of loneliness settles so gently and so gradually that the heart it covers scarcely feels the cold creeping in, until one day it has quite forgotten that it was ever warm at all. And so the beast tended his garden and waited, and slowly, softly froze. Into this frozen, glowing, gently waiting place, there came at last the girl from the tower, following her worn old map through the snow, her long, starlit hair trailing in a soft, glowing line behind her. She did not run from the beast when first she saw him standing among his frozen roses, though he was very large and very strange, and his thundering voice might well have frightened a different sort of heart. But she had only just lately learned how wide and various and full of wonders the whole world could be, and so she met him with the open and unguarded curiosity of someone newly and gladly free. She looked at him, truly looked, past the great shaggy fur and the low rolling thunder of his voice, and she saw, plainly and at once, the soft and sad and gentle kindness waiting there in his eyes. And she smiled at him, warm and open and entirely unafraid. The beast went very, very still then, the way the girl in the tower had gone still when at last her song was answered from below. For no one had looked at him like that, truly seen him like that, in longer than his lonely heart could bear to remember. No one had looked past the frightening shape of him to the gentle and aching soul that dwelt within it. And at that very moment, deep inside the castle, in the case of clear glass at its center, the single living rose began, slowly and softly, to open. One deep red petal unfurled, and then another, opening gently outward, filling the frozen hall around it with the faint, sweet, impossible smell of summer, of warm afternoons and growing things, and a spring long forgotten. The girl stayed on in the frozen garden, for she was a wanderer now, and in no particular hurry to be anywhere at all. And the lonely beast was glad of her company in a way that both ached within him and warmed him through. All at the very same time. They spent the long blue twilight hours together, the two of them, walking among the frozen hedges and the floating flames. And she told him of her tower, and of the old wordless song, and of the door of starlight her own singing had opened in the cold stone. And he told her, haltingly at first, his deep voice unused to so much speaking, and then more and more easily as the hours passed, of the garden and of the single living rose, and of the warm green spring that he could only just barely remember from some long ago time before the frost. And the more the two of them spoke and listened and simply sat together in the gentle glowing twilight, the more the old frost seemed quietly to retreat from around the edges of the beast's great shaggy heart. And as his heart slowly warmed, so too, very slowly, did the whole frozen garden begin to warm around them. It happened gently, the way all of the very gentlest changes always happen, so softly you might miss it if you were not looking. One morning, the girl noticed that a single small patch of snow had melted clear away from the top of a hedge, and beneath it, impossibly, against all the long years of winter, there was a tiny green shoot pushing up toward the light. Then, a day or two later, a frozen fountain cracked softly somewhere in the garden and began, one slow drop at a time, to flow again. Then a single brave crocus pushed its way up through the thinning snow, purple and small and impossibly alive. The endless winter was ending, you see, not all at once in a great rush, but tenderly, gradually, in small and gentle and unmistakable signs. It was ending because someone had finally, after all the long frozen years, been truly seen, and because someone had finally, in return, truly seen. Here's the gentle lesson that the beast and his thawing garden hold for us, and it is a quiet and an important one, well worth carrying into your own rest. We do not thaw alone. The frost that gathers slowly over a lonely heart cannot be melted away by simply trying harder, or by waiting longer, or by tending ever more faithfully to the gardens of our solitude. It melts only and always in the warmth of being truly seen by another, and of truly seeing them in return. The beast had tended his single living rose faithfully for years upon lonely years, but it could never once bloom for him alone, no matter how he loved it. It needed two hearts turned gently toward one another to bring at last the spring. And so, do ours. The garden bloomed slowly into a spring made all the more beautiful for having waited so very long to arrive. The floating candle flames, no longer needed now, dimmed themselves gently and drifted down to rest. As the first real golden sunlight began to filter warm and new through the thawing branches of the trees, living roses, red and pink and white, climbed the pale gray castle walls where only ice had clung before. And the beast, though he kept still his great shaggy shape, lost entirely the frost from around his heart, and his deep thundering voice grew warm and gentle, and his sad eyes grew, at long last, glad. He was lonely no longer, and his garden was winter no longer, and that, surely, is magic enough for anyone in all the wide world. The girl and the beast would sit together in the soft, new evenings beside the case of clear glass where the living rose now bloomed full and deep and red. And they would watch the new spring deepening green and warm all around them, and they would simply be quiet together. It was the good kind of quiet, the the comfortable kind, case shared by two souls who no longer feel any need at all to fill the silence between them with words. And you may rest now in that same good, quiet, sleepy traveler. The warm and settled and easy quiet of a heart that has at last found its true companion, and a garden that has at last found its spring. There is nothing left at all to fear in that gentle place. There is only the slow, soft blooming, and the warm golden light, and the close and easy company, and the deep peace of a long winter finally, gently ended. Let that warmth settle over you now, the way the spring settled over the beast's garden, soft and slow and sure. But you have not quite drifted all the way off to sleep just yet, have you? You are still here with me, floating just at the warm surface of rest. And so I will show you one last small and quiet thing from the beast's garden before we gently move along. At the very edge of that thawing garden, there lay a pond, newly melted, stark water still and smooth and starred all over with the soft, reflected light of the evening sky. And along the mossy stones at the pond's edge, there hopped a small green frog, slow and round and entirely content. The little frog made its unhurried way toward something that glittered soft and gold beneath the still dark surface of the water. And there, beneath that sleepy starlit surface, down where the gold thing gleamed and waited, our next dreamy tale gently begins. So, down beneath the still water we drift now, slow and soft and dreaming, into the next quiet story of the night. Story 8. The Frog Prince. The small green frog hopped from the mossy stones into the still dark pond at the garden's edge, and down he swam, down and down through the cool, clear water. And the pond proved to be far deeper than any garden pond has any right to be. Down and down he went until it was not a pond at all any longer, but a whole wide, sleepy sea, opening out vast and gentle all around him. This sea was warm and shallow and endlessly, perfectly calm. Its water was so clear and so full of soft, floating points of light that swimming slowly through it felt like drifting through a whole sky full of drowsy stars. There were no waves at all in that sea, no storms, no cold, dark, frightening depths waiting below. There was only the gentle, endless rocking of the warm water and the soft, golden glow that filled it. In the deep, deep, settling peace of the place, to float there was to feel held. To swim there, slow and unhurried, was to feel every worry you had ever carried simply loosen and drift away from you, up toward the shimmering surface far above and gone. It was the most peaceful sea in all the wide world, and perhaps in all the worlds there are. At the very bottom of this sleepy sea, resting in a soft bed of pale fine sand, there lay a golden ball. It glowed there, round and warm and steady, the only gold in all that endless, drowsy blue. And it had lain in just that spot for a very, very long time, right? For the golden ball was a precious thing, dropped long ago over the mossy edge of a marble well by a careless hand. And it had sunk slowly down through all the warm, clear water to settle here at the very bottom, where the small green frog had long ago appointed himself its quiet and faithful guardian. The frog, as you have very likely already guessed, was not an entirely ordinary frog, or this is exactly the sort of gentle old tale in which frogs so rarely turn out to be. He was old, and he was wise, and he was wonderfully slow in all his ways. And he had been a great many different things over the long course of his long life. But now, in this age of his living, he was content simply to keep the golden ball safe in its bed of sand, and to grant, every now and then, a single honest promise to anyone who came down seeking it. He did not ask for very much, the old frog. He asked only ever for truth, for a promise that was truly meant and faithfully kept, which in all the wide and busy world is one of the very rarest and most precious things that there is. On the particular night that our story finds him drowsing peacefully atop his golden ball, a girl came to the mossy edge of the marble well, far, far above, up in the bright world of air and wind and silver moonlight. And she had been weeping softly, for she had lost something very dear to her. Her quiet tears fell down, one by one, over the edge of the old well, falling and falling through the dark until they touched at last the surface of the sleepy sea far below, and sent the gentlest of ripples spreading out across it. And the old frog, drowsing far down in the warm water, felt the small, soft splash of her sorrow reach him. And being a kind old creature at heart, he stirred himself, swam slowly up through all the warm, glowing water to see what it was that troubled the world so far above his quiet sea. He found her there at the well's mossy edge, her face wet with tears in the moonlight, and he listened to her, the way the traveler had once listened to the song from the lonely tower, the way the 7 small keepers had listened to the frightened girl beneath their hill. The girl told him, between her soft tears, that she had lost something very precious, a small golden ball that had once belonged to someone she had loved dearly and lost, and that the ball had slipped from her hands and rolled away and tumbled down into the deep, dark well, and that she could not possibly reach it, and that her heart was heavy and aching with the losing of it. And the wise old frog nodded his green head slowly, for he knew exactly where her golden ball had gone, having guarded it faithfully in its bed of pale sand all this long while. "I will bring it up to you," said the frog at last, in his low and gentle croaking voice. "I will dive down and fetch it for you, and carry it up into the moonlight, but you must make me one honest promise in return for it." And the girl, who had been expecting some great and frightening and terrible price to be named, braced herself and held her breath. But the old frog asked for nothing grand at all, and nothing frightening, and nothing terrible. He asked only this gentle thing. "Promise me," he said, looking up at her with his soft, dark eyes, "that when you have your golden ball safe in your hands again, you will sit yourself down here a while by this old well in the quiet moonlight, and you will not go rushing off at once. And you will simply rest and let yourself feel truly glad. For you have been hurrying so fast through your sorrow, little one, and a grieving heart needs time, real time, to sit quietly with the things it has found again." The girl was surprised by this, for it was such a strange and soft and gentle sort of promise to be asked for. Nothing at all like the bargains of the old, frightening tales. But she found, somewhere deep within her aching heart, that she very much wanted to keep it. And so she gave the old frog her word, honestly and fully, and with her whole heart, that she would do exactly as he asked. And the old frog, satisfied, dove back down through the warm, glowing water, down and down to the soft bed of pale sand at the very bottom of the sleepy sea. He took the golden ball gently and carefully into his wide, soft mouth, and he turned. And he began the slow, patient climb back up toward the silver moonlight shining down so far above. And as he rose, the whole sleepy sea around him held its breath, the way it always did, so that nothing at all would disturb his careful upward climb. For that, you see, was the great, soft, secret magic of this particular sea. The very thing that made it so deeply and perfectly peaceful held its breath for those who needed it most. When a lost thing was being carried home through its waters, the whole warm sea would go utterly and perfectly still, holding itself motionless, letting the seeker breathe easy, letting them rise slow and unhurried, letting them find their gentle way back up to the surface with no fear at all of sinking or of drowning. It was a sea that understood, in its deep, ancient way, that the lost and the grieving need, above all else, simply to be allowed to move slowly, to breathe deeply, to not be rushed along before they are ready. And so the sea gave them that rare gift, freely, every single time. The old frog rose at last to the surface, and he laid the golden ball gently into the girl's open and waiting hands. And it was warm still, warm from the glowing water it had rested in so long, and it shone soft and gold in the moonlight, exactly as she had remembered it. She held it close against her heart, and she wept again. But these were altogether different tears now. It's the kind that come not from losing, but from finding, from the sweet, deep ache of holding once more something you had believed was gone from you forever. And then, remembering well the honest promise she had given to the old frog, she sat herself down upon the mossy edge of the well, and she did not go rushing away. She sat there a long, quiet while in the silver moonlight, the warm, golden ball cradled gently in her lap, and she let herself feel glad, truly and fully glad, just as the wise old frog had asked her to. And in the sitting, and in the resting, and in the not hurrying anywhere at all, her heavy, aching heart slowly, slowly grew light again. For here is the gentle lesson that the wise old frog beneath the sleepy sea wished so much for her to learn, and wishes too for you to gather close as you settle now toward your own deep rest. When you find again, at last, something that you had lost, do not go rushing past the finding of it. Sit with it a while, rest within it, let yourself feel the gladness all the way through, fully and without any hurry at all, for that, and that alone, is how a grieving heart truly mends itself and heals. The old frog watched her from the well's mossy edge, his soft, dark eyes content, and when at last she rose to go out, lighter now by far than she had come, he slipped quietly back down beneath the warm, glowing water to resume his long and patient watch over the golden ball's empty bed of sand. And the sleepy sea breathed out again, slow and easy, and rocked itself gently in the warm dark, and glowed softly with its countless points of floating light, exactly as it always had, and exactly as it always would, world without end. And you may rock there too, now, in that same warm and breathing and endlessly patient sea, held gently and unhurried, allowed to drift and to move just as slowly as your own tired heart desires. There is no hurry here at all. There is nowhere you must be. There is only the warm water and the soft floating light, and the slow, gentle rocking, holding its breath for you, letting you sink down soft and unafraid into rest. But you are still here, still drifting, not yet quite all the way down into the warm, dark water of true sleep. And so, as the sleepy sea rocked gently onward beneath the moon, I noticed something far below, deeper even than the soft bed of pale sand where the golden ball had lain so long. 12 faint stairways, shimmering pale and silver in the deep water, leading down and down beneath the sea toward a hidden hall that I had never seen before. And from that hidden hall, far below, there drifted faintly up the softest sound of music. So down those 12 silver stairs we drift now, slow and dreaming, into the next gentle tale. Story 9. The 12 Dancing Princesses. Down the 12 shimmering silver stairways we drift now, deeper even than the floor of the sleepy sea, into a hidden hall far beneath the quiet world, and there the air is cool and sweet and full of the very faintest drifting music. For in a kingdom long, long ago, there lived 12 sisters, 12 princesses, and every single night, when the castle was dark and still, they would slip away together to a secret place to dance, and no one in all the kingdom knew where they went, nor how they got there, nor what they did when they arrived. Each and every morning, the sisters' soft dancing shoes were found worn clean through, the soles as thin and ragged as if the girls had danced 100 miles upon them through the night. And each morning, the king and all his wise men puzzled over it, and asked the sisters where they had been, and how their shoes had come to such a state. But the 12 sisters only smiled their soft, secret smiles, and would not say a word, and went about their gentle days, and waited for the next night to come. The secret, sleepy traveler, the secret that no one in the waking kingdom ever guessed, was this. In the very floor of the chamber where the 12 sisters slept, there was a hidden trapdoor, cleverly concealed. And beneath that trapdoor, there wound a long and gentle silver stair, leading down and down. And at the very bottom of that stair, there lay a whole secret world, that existed only in the night. This was a forest, but no ordinary forest of plain green leaves and brown bark. This was a forest made all of silver and of gold. The trees of that hidden forest had trunks and branches of pure, soft silver, and their leaves were thin, beaten gold. And when the gentle night breeze drifted through them, those golden leaves would chime softly against one another. It's like the very gentlest little bells you have ever heard in all your life. The sound of them was like a lullaby with no tune, a soft, random chiming that rose and fell and never quite repeated, filling the silver wood with a music that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It was a sound made entirely for drifting off to. Down the long silver stair the 12 sisters would go every night, each of them in her soft, worn dancing shoes, holding their skirts and stepping lightly. They would pass through the chiming forest of silver trees, where drifting lanterns hung among the golden branches, casting a tender, warm glow across all that cool, gleaming metal. They would come to the shore of a wide, still lake, dark and smooth as polished glass, and there they would step into 12 small silver boats that waited for them, and the boats would glide out across the water without any oars at all, moving smooth and silent. The drifting lanterns above were reflected down in the dark, glassy water below, so that the sisters seemed to float through a second starry sky as they crossed, with lanterns above them and lanterns beneath them, and the silver trees rising all around. And on the far shore of that still lake there stood a pavilion built all of soft, glowing light, and from within it played music that came from no instrument that anyone could ever see, gentle and slow and endless. And there, in that pavilion of light, the 12 sisters danced. But they did not dance the sharp, bright, quick dances of the waking world above. They danced slow and drifting dances, weightless as dreams themselves, their feet in their worn, soft shoes barely seeming to touch the glowing floor at all. They danced with one another, turning gently, and they danced with the soft shadows of the place, and they danced with the drifting music itself, which seemed somehow to hold them up and carry them along, so that there was no effort at all in any of it, no counting of steps, no fear of stumbling or growing tired. There was only the slow turning and the soft drifting and the deep, gentle feeling of being held and moved by something kind and patient and unhurried. It was less like dancing, truly, than it was like the way you move through a dream, where your body simply goes where it wishes to go, weightless and easy, and the world turns soft and slow around you. The sisters danced that way for hours, all through the secret night, in the pavilion of light on the far shore of the glassy lake in the chiming silver wood. Now, in the older telling of this tale, someone clever follows the 12 sisters down in secret to discover where it is they go each night. And there is a great deal of fuss and worry and cleverness about the whole affair. But tonight, in the gentle telling, let us not trouble ourselves at all with being caught, or with secrets discovered, or with any worry of that sort. Let us instead simply go down the long silver stair together with the 12 sisters, and step into the silver boats, and cross the glassy lake, and dance. For this is a place that anyone at all may visit, if only their heart is quiet enough, and their step is soft enough, and they are willing to drift. It is a place that opens in the drowsy hours for any dreamer who wanders near enough to find the hidden stair. You may be wandering very near to it right now, in fact, drifting closer with every slow breath. For this hidden hall, far beneath the sleepy sea, is the very place that your own dreams go to when you finally drift off to sleep at night. The silver trees, the soft chiming golden leaves, the still glass lake, the drifting glowing lanterns, the pavilion of light, the music that comes from everywhere and nowhere. It is all of it waiting just beneath the thin surface of sleep, just down the gentle winding stair that opens in the floor of every drowsy and dreaming mind. The 12 sisters simply found the hidden door a little sooner than the rest of us do, and went down through it a little more often, and learned to dance there with their whole soft hearts. But the door is there for you, too. It is always there for you. The drifting lanterns swayed gently among the golden branches, and the soft music played on, slow and warm and endless. And the 12 sisters danced their weightless, dreaming dances across the glowing floor of the pavilion. There was no end to the night in that secret place, no dawn to fear, no hurry ever to return to the waking world above. Time moved there the way it moves in the very deepest sleep, which is to say, it hardly moved at all. It's only a single, long and gentle and endless moment, soft enough to hold a whole lifetime of slow turning beneath the silver trees. And the sisters wanted for nothing at all in that place, and feared nothing, and were perfectly and entirely at peace. Here is the soft lesson that the 12 gently dancing sisters hold for us, drifting down to you now through the chiming golden leaves. There is a place inside of sleep that is yours, and yours alone, a hidden hall of silver and gold and soft, endless music, where you may dance weightless and unafraid, held up and carried along by something kind. And you do not have to earn your way down to it at all. You do not have to be clever or brave or quick or worthy. You have only to grow quiet and soft and willing to let yourself drift down the gentle, winding stair into the waiting dream. It is there for you every single night of your life. It always has been. It always will be. It is waiting for you even now, just below the silver trees chiming softly, the lanterns drifting, the music beginning to play. You have only to keep drifting down toward it, slow and easy, the way you are drifting now. The drifting lanterns swayed, and the soft silver leaves chimed their gentlest little bells. And one by one, the 12 sisters began at last to slow their dancing, growing drowsy even within the dream itself, the very way that you are growing drowsy now within your own. They drifted from the glowing pavilion to the soft, mossy banks at the edge of the glass lake, and they laid themselves down among the cool, silver roots of the trees, and they let the endless, gentle music wash slowly over them, warm and soft and soothing. The drifting lanterns above them dimmed by gentle degrees to a soft and tender glow. The golden leaves grew still and quiet upon their silver branches, and the whole hidden hall settled slowly down into a deeper and a softer quiet, the deep quiet that lives at the very bottom of sleep, far below dreaming, where there is nothing at all but rest. The sisters slept there within their dream, which is a strange and a wonderful thing, to sleep within sleep, to drift down even beneath the soft floor of the dream into something softer and more peaceful still that waits below it. And perhaps that is just exactly where you are drifting yourself, now, this very moment. Down past the silver forest and the glass lake and the pavilion of light, down into the warm, dark stillness at the very deepest root of rest. There is nothing down there to fear. There is nothing down there at all but peace and quiet and the slow, soft, endless holding of the very deepest sleep there is. Let yourself drift down toward it. Let yourself sink softly into it. It is warm and it is safe, and it has been waiting for you all along. But you are still here, just barely, just at the very faintest edge of waking still. The thin, gentle thread of my voice still reaching you somehow in the soft, gathering dark. And so I will tell you the very last soft thing, the gentlest thing of all the things I have told you tonight. As the 12 sisters slept among the cool silver roots of the chiming forest, one of the many drifting lanterns came gently loose from its golden branch, floated free, lifting up off the surface of the still glass lake, rising slowly through the soft chiming leaves, up and up and up, toward a sky that had somehow opened far overhead, a wide night sky full of slow and gently turning stars. And so, my dearest and sleepiest traveler, we rise with that one soft lantern now, up out of the hidden hall, into the last and softest tale of all. Story 10, The Last Lantern in the Celestial Sea. Up rises the one soft lantern, gentle and gold, up out of the hidden hall and through the chiming silver leaves and out at last into a vast and open sky. But it is not the sky that you know, the ordinary sky that hangs above your roof and your window. Hi, it is a celestial sea, a great and boundless calm ocean made all of night itself, where the stars float, not as small, distant points of cold, faraway light, but as countless, gentle, warm lanterns, drifting slow and golden in every direction at once, near and far, above and below. There is no up and no down in that celestial sea, no floor and no ceiling. Only the endless soft drifting of lantern light in every direction you could ever turn or dream of turning. Some of the floating lights are close enough to reach out and touch, glowing, warm, and steady. Others are so far away they are only the faintest soft smudges of gold in the deep velvet dark. And all of them, near and far, drift slowly together through the boundless quiet, lighting one another, keeping one another gentle company in the endless, peaceful night. This sleepy traveler, drifting now so near to sleep, is where all the stories go. Every single tale that has ever been told softly to a child in the dark. Every lantern ever lit in every forest. Every star ever swept up from every cold and waiting hearth. Every song ever sung up the side of a lonely tower. Every rose that ever bloomed in any frozen garden. They all rise, at the very last, into this celestial sea, and they float here together, slow and peaceful and complete, lighting one another, keeping one another company in the warm and endless dark. The one soft lantern that rose up from the dancing hall drifted out now among all the others, and it was not alone, and it would never be alone again. Here, for there, drifting nearby in the great gentle sea, was the warm lantern from the forest house, the very one that had led the girl in the red cloak so gently along the kind path through the trees. And there, glowing soft and silver, was the star ash of the Cinder Girl, the light she had swept up so patiently through all her quiet years. And there was the soft, rose-colored light of the sleeping castle, drifting among its 100 dreaming roses, a calm. And there the warm, amber glow of the gingerbread cottage in the snow. And there, all 7 together in a gentle row, the 7 small colored lamps from the grove beneath the green hill. Rose and gold and green and blue and amber and pearl and deep, soft violet. And there the silver starlight from the long golden braid, and the floating candle flames from the beast's thawed and blooming garden, and the warm golden gleam of the ball from beneath the sleepy sea, and the drifting lanterns of the 12 gently dancing sisters. All of them were there, every light from every tale of the long night, drifting together at last in the celestial sea, home and at peace and complete. And you are here too, now, drifting softly among them. For you have done the rare and the lovely thing, the thing that only the truest of night travelers ever managed to do. You've stayed, soft and patient and gently curious, all the way through to the very last lantern of all, the way only a true wanderer of the night ever stays. And so you have found it at last, the hidden kingdom that waits past the very last forgotten song, the one that only those who stay until the end ever discover. It is not a kingdom of high walls and tall towers and grand stone halls, as you might once have imagined. It is this warm and boundless and endless sea of softly floating light, where every gentle story that was ever told lies down to rest, and where you, too, may rest now, drifting weightless and safe among the lanterns of every tale ever whispered into the dark. There is a river here, winding through the celestial sea, slow, soft current of pure lantern light that threads its way gently among all the floating, drifting stars. And this river has only one single purpose, gentle and kind and ancient. It carries dreamers home. It gathers up softly all the sleepy ones who have drifted at last all the way out among the floating lights, and it bears them along upon its warm, slow current, gently, deeper and deeper into the soft, dark, welcoming heart of sleep, where nothing at all can trouble them, and nothing is asked of them, and there is only rest. You are in that river now. Can you feel it, carrying you? The slow, warm current moving softly beneath you, holding you up, bearing you gently along. The countless lanterns drifting slowly past you on every side, soft gold and silver and rose and deepest violet, dimming now, each one of them, gently and on purpose, one by one, as the warm river carries you onward and downward into rest. There is no hurry here at all. There is nowhere in all the world that you need to be. There is only the slow drifting and the warmth and the soft gold glow growing dimmer and dimmer all around you. The many voices of all the gentle stories grow soft and quiet around you now, settling like birds folding their wings for the night. The girl in the red cloak is sleeping soundly in her house of warm light. The cinder girl sleeps content beside her glowing hearth. The castle sleeps deep beneath its 100 roses, and the 2 children sleep warm in their cinnamon beds. And the gentle girl sleeps in the soft, violet glow of belonging beneath her hill. The girl from the tower sleeps beneath the wide open stars she carried so long, and the beast sleeps in his blooming spring garden, and the old frog rests easy in his sleepy sea, and the 12 sisters sleep among the cool silver roots of their chiming forest, and you sleep too, now, drifting among them all, one more gentle dreamer come home at last to the endless lantern sea. Here is the very last and the very softest lesson of all, the one that the whole long gentle night has been quietly carrying you toward, light by light and tale by tale. You are safe. You have always been safe. The world holds within it many paths, and a good many of them run dark, but there is always a gentler way, lit one small patient lantern at a time, and it leads, in the end, here, to this, to rest. You do not have to earn your way to this deep peace. You do not have to be clever, or brave, or worthy, or quick. You have only to let go, softly, and to drift, and to trust the slow, warm river of light to carry you home. And it will. It always does. It always has. The lanterns are very dim now, all around you, the very softest glow, like the last warm embers of a fire banked down low and safe for the long night. The celestial sea grows dark and warm and wonderfully still. The river slows and slows and slows, and you are drifting so deep now, so soft, so far down into the gentle, welcoming dark that you can scarcely feel any more the thin boundary between the dream and the rest, between the story and the silence, between the last awaking and the long, soft sleep that has been waiting for you all along. Patient as a lantern on a low branch in a quiet wood. There is no next story now, sleepy one. There is no cliffhanger left to carry you onward, no new traveler to follow into the dark, no far country glimmering at the edge of the tale, waiting to be discovered. There is only this now. The warm, dark sea and the dimming lanterns and the slow, soft river of gentle light. And you, drifting upon it, held and safe and asleep at last. The narrator grows quiet now too. You may notice the soft voice beside your bed sinking slowly to a whisper, and then to a hum, and then to nothing at all but the soft, slow sound of your own gentle breathing in the dark. Sleep now. The lanterns will keep their patient watch over you all through the night, as they always have. The gentle stories will keep their soft and quiet company out in the celestial sea, drifting and glowing, waiting for the next night and the next traveler. And the slow, warm river of light will hold you gently all the way through the dark hours and carry you softly toward the morning, whenever, at last, the morning chooses to come. But not yet. Not for a long, long while yet. There is no need to think of the morning now. For now, there is only the slow, soft drifting and the deep, gentle warmth. In the boundless, quiet peace of the night traveler who has wandered all the long way through the dark and come, at last, safely home. You have nothing left to do and nowhere left to go and nothing left to carry. Let the river hold you. Let the last lantern dim. Let yourself drift down, soft and easy, into the warm and waiting dark. Rest now. You are there. You've arrived. Good night, gentle traveler. Good night. Sleep now, and sleep deep, and sleep well.